Picture someone who did everything right. Out of school, they landed a job paying $48,000 a year. Felt like a fortune at the time. It was more money than they'd ever made, way more than their parents made at that age. Fast forward 12 years later, after the promotions, the job changes, the annual raises, they're making $96,000. They doubled their income, which sounds great on paper. But here's the problem. Their bank account looks almost exactly like it did at 25. That same scramble in the last week of the month, same mini panic attack when hit with an unexpected bill, same feeling of where did it all go on payday. Twice the salary, but equally broke. If that sounds familiar, it's because it's the most common money story in America. If you can't relate, congrats. You're doing better than the average American. Most people spend their whole careers chasing a bigger number. And sure, that bigger number is the thing that will finally set them free. Makes sense. So they grind for the promotion, they switch jobs for the bump, they tell themselves that once they hit the next level, things will feel different. Then the bigger number shows up, and nothing changes. You'd think doubling your income would change your life. For most people, it barely changes their weekend. More money was supposed to fix it, but it almost never does. Earning more was never the thing that makes you richer. We've all been sold that it is, that the whole plan is make more, and everything else takes care of itself. But there's a gap between earning more and keeping more. And almost everything that happens inside that gap is built to make sure the extra money never really reaches you. Earning more doesn't make you richer, keeping more does. And the system is very good at making sure you don't keep it. Every raise you'll ever get walks into a room full of people who've been waiting for it. The tax brackets are waiting. Your landlord and your lender are waiting. Every brand with a "you've earned it, treat yourself" ad is waiting. Even the people around you are waiting, without meaning to see what you upgrade next. They all take a cut before you ever see a dollar of real progress. And nobody explains this to you. So when the bigger paycheck somehow leaves you in the exact same spot, you blame yourself. You decide you're just bad with money. You promise to try harder, save more, budget better next time. But trying harder inside a trap doesn't get you out of the trap. It just wears you out while you stay in the same place. That's the cruelest part. The trap is designed so that the harder you work and the more you earn, the more convinced you become that the answer is to work even harder and earn even more. You sprint faster on a treadmill and wonder why the scenery never changes. Let's break down where a raise actually goes. The things that intercept it before it can make you richer, the deeper trap underneath all of them, and how to make more money turn into a genuinely better life instead of a more expensive one. At the end, I'll walk through an example to bring everything together. I'll tell you a story about someone who doubled their income and still ended up with almost nothing, and exactly what they should have done instead. With the numbers laid out so you can see how different the two paths really are. One line to hold on to the whole way through: earning more doesn't make you richer, keeping more does. A lot of people picture taxes as one flat slice off the top. They figure if they keep about 75% of their salary, they'll keep about 75% of their raise. That's not how it works, and the difference matters more than almost anything else in this video. Your raise stacks on top of everything you already earn. It doesn't get taxed at your average rate. It gets taxed at your highest one, because it's the last money in. Your raise is the single most expensive money you earn all year. Say you get a $12,000 raise. You're already excited. You've already mentally spent it. The trip, the car, the breathing room. But between federal tax, state or provincial tax, and the payroll deductions that come out of every check, that $12,000 might land as more like $7,500 or $8,000 in your actual account. So a third of the raise, sometimes more, quietly vanishes before it ever shows up. And here's where it bites twice. The number on the offer letter is the gross number, the big one. But you make your spending plans based on that big number, not the smaller one that actually arrives. You're actually only like $8,000 richer, but you spend like you're $12,000 richer. The gap goes straight onto a credit card or into a payment you can't quite cover, and the raise is underwater before you've even adjusted to it. The number on the offer letter and the number that hits your bank are two different numbers. Never confuse the two. Then there's what you do with what's left, which for most people is spend it without ever noticing. Nobody sits down and decides to blow a raise. It's quieter than that. The raise comes in, and a few months later, the apartment is a little nicer because you deserve it after working so hard. The car is newer because the payment fits now. You eat out a bit more. You stop checking the price on small stuff. A couple of new subscriptions you forget you have. None of it feels reckless. Every single step makes complete sense on its own. But add it all up and your fixed costs have ratcheted up to match the new income. And fixed costs don't ratchet back down. You can cancel a dinner. You can't cancel a mortgage you signed because the bank approved you on the bigger paycheck. That's the quiet trap inside the trap. Lenders size your loans to your gross income. They'll happily hand you the bigger mortgage and the bigger car loan, because the bigger your fixed payments, the more they make, as long as that income keeps flowing forever. And once you've signed, you're locked in. You've built a life that needs every dollar of the new salary, which means you can never drop back to the old one, which means you can never stop, which means you can never take a risk or a break or a lower paying job you'd actually love. There's a word for upgrading your life every time your income goes up: lifestyle inflation. And it's sneaky because it never feels like a decision. It feels like just living a little better. But zoom out 3 years and your income is up 40% while your savings haven't moved an inch. You got the raises. You just can't point to a single thing they bought you that you'd actually fight to keep. A raise you spend doesn't buy you freedom. It buys you a slightly more expensive version of the exact same life, with higher walls around it. The most unfair part of all of this is that living at the edge of your income is expensive, and it stays expensive no matter how big that income gets. When you have no cushion, you pay penalties for it constantly. There's a whole stack of hidden taxes you pay just for being broke, and not one of them disappears when your salary goes up. They only disappear when you have money sitting in reserve. Let me walk you through them, because once you see them, you can't unsee them. You pay the fee tax, your balance dips, a payment lands at the wrong time, and the bank hits you with a $34 overdraft charge. Think about what that actually is. You borrowed maybe $20 for 3 days, and you paid $34 for it. Run that as an interest rate, and it's in the hundreds of percent. The kind of rate that would be illegal coming from a loan shark, but it's just standard policy coming from a bank. And it's not random who pays it. Banks make billions on overdraft fees almost entirely from people living near zero. Keep a big balance and the bank pays you interest. Live at zero and you pay the bank. Same bank, opposite treatment, decided entirely by whether you already have money. You pay the cheap stuff tax. When you can't spare the cash up front, you buy the $45 work boots that fall apart in 8 months instead of the $160 pair that lasts 5 years. Over those 5 years, the cheap boots cost you more, and your feet were wet the whole time. The same thing happens with tires. With a cheap mattress, you replace twice. With the bargain appliance that dies in 2 years. You pay more in the long run precisely because you couldn't afford to spend more up front. Poverty isn't just expensive in the moment, it's expensive on a loop. You pay the high-interest tax. The broke version of you can't pay cash for a car, so you end up at the kind of lot that sells a $6,000 car for $9,000 and finances it at 22%. By the time it's paid off, you've handed over $14,000 for a car worth $6,000, and it probably broke down before the loan was even finished, so you're making payments on a dead car while you figure out how to finance the next one. You pay a risk premium because the system has decided you're risky, and the only way to stop being treated as risky is to have money, which you can't save, because you're spending it on the risk premium. It's a loop built to keep you exactly where you are. You pay the small quantities tax. You buy the little pack of coffee, the single roll, the travel size everything, because you can't lock up $40 in a bulk purchase today. So you pay 2 or 3 times the per unit price for the exact same product forever just because you can't pay for the big box once. Your personal inflation rate is permanently higher than a wealthy person's, on the same shelf, in the same store. You pay the convenience tax. The higher earning version of you usually works more and comes home more drained, so you pay for delivery, for the cleaner, for the pre-made meals, quietly buying back the time and energy the job took out of you in the first place. The raise didn't just fail to make you richer, it made you tired, and then it charged you for the tiredness. And you pay the catastrophe tax, which is the worst one. You skip the $250 dental cleaning because money's tight this month, and a year later it's a $2,000 root canal. You ignore the small leak, and it becomes a floor replacement. The small problem you couldn't afford to fix becomes the big one you really can't afford. Being broke turns every minor issue into a future emergency. None of this gets better just because your salary went up. Someone making $96,000 with nothing in the bank pays every single one of these taxes the same as someone making $40,000. Being broke at a high income is still being broke. It's just better hidden and harder to admit. Step back from your own paycheck for a second because there's a bigger force at work, and it's the one almost nobody talks about. When everyone's pay goes up, the price of the things everyone competes for goes up too. Housing is the clearest case. When buyers have more money, they don't pay less for the same house. They bid more for it. The extra income gets soaked straight into the price. A whole country can earn more and end up no better off, just paying bigger numbers for the same square footage. The same thing happens with anything there's a fixed amount of and everyone wants. Homes in good areas, spots at good schools, land near the jobs. I learned this in the most personal way possible with my first real raise. I'd worked hard for it. It came in at about 1.5%, and inflation that year was running around 3%. So even though my paycheck got bigger, the things I was buying with it got more expensive faster than my raise did. In real terms, I was making less than I had the year before. I got a raise and got poorer at the same time. That was the moment it really hit me, that the number on a paycheck and what that paycheck can actually do for you are two completely different things, and almost everyone confuses them. And it made me lose faith in the whole story we grew up on. Work hard, keep your head down, climb the ladder, and you'll make more and more, and life gets better. Think about what one normal salary used to buy. A generation or two ago, a single average income could cover a house, a car, raising a couple of kids, a yearly vacation, and still leave something to put away. One earner. Today, it often takes 2 strong incomes to reach that same life. And even then, it feels tight. The things that actually decide your quality of life, housing, healthcare, education, have climbed far, far faster than paychecks have. The raises came, but the ground moved underneath them faster than they ever could. A raise the whole world gets isn't a raise, it's a new baseline. And if your raise didn't even beat that baseline, you fell behind while feeling like you got ahead. The people who look the most successful are very often the ones who own the least. Look around at who seems to be winning. The new car, the watch, the apartment with the view, the clothes, the trips, the constant upgrades. It's natural to look at all of that and assume there's wealth behind it. But most of what you're looking at isn't wealth, it's spending. It's a lease, a loan, a balance, a paycheck stretched to its absolute limit to project the image of having made it. Real wealth is quiet, and it's almost invisible because it's the stuff you can't see. It's the investment account, the paid-off debt, the cushion that lets someone sleep at night, the money that isn't being shown to anyone because it's busy compounding. The person with real wealth often looks more boring than the person faking it. That's the whole point. And this matters for your raise, because the appearance of wealth is contagious. You see people living a certain way, and you quietly start sizing your own life against theirs. You inflate your lifestyle to match people who are, themselves, completely broke behind the curtain. You end up in a competition nobody can win, spending money you worked hard for to impress people who are doing the exact same thing to impress you. Everyone's performing wealth, almost nobody has it. A generation or two ago, the goal was to be comfortable and secure. Somewhere along the way, the goal quietly became to look successful. And those are not the same thing. In fact, they're usually opposites, because every dollar spent looking rich is a dollar that can't be used to actually become rich. So decide which game you're playing. You can spend your raise on looking like you're winning, or you can spend it on actually winning. You almost never get to do both. Underneath all of it is the real trap, and it has nothing to do with the size of your paycheck. Earning more, the normal way, quietly destroys the one thing that actually keeps you safe, your margin. Margin is your room to be wrong. It's the cushion that lets you survive a layoff, an illness, a bad month, a surprise expense, without the whole thing collapsing. It's the distance between you and disaster. When you size your life to every new dollar you earn, you run at full capacity with nothing in reserve. And this sounds backwards, but people who earn more are often more financially fragile, not less. Researchers who studied thousands of household bankruptcies found that a higher income was no protection at all. A lot of people filed precisely because their fixed costs had grown to swallow every dollar coming in, so the first real shock wiped them out. More money, more committed to fixed costs, less room to absorb a hit. The bigger paycheck didn't make them safer, it made them more breakable. Think about how our grandparents handled this without ever naming it. In a lot of households, one person earned and one person could step in and earn if things went wrong. That second, unused earning power was a built-in insurance policy, a backup that could be switched on the day a job disappeared. Most of us have spent that backup, both incomes or every dollar of the one income, fully committed to the payments. No reserve, no backup, nothing held in case the world changes. Here's the reframe that fixes it. Every dollar of your raise you don't spend is you buying that insurance policy back. You're rebuilding the backup for yourself on purpose. Because the alternative is the golden handcuffs. The high earner who spends it all can't walk away from a job they hate, can't take a risk on something better, can't absorb a single bad break because their entire life is wired to a paycheck that can never stop. They look successful and they have no freedom. They're not rich, they're just expensively trapped. And living that close to the edge does something to your head too. When money stress is constant, it eats your focus and your judgment. Researchers have found that serious financial strain can hit your thinking about as hard as losing a full night of sleep night after night. Which means the trap actively makes you worse at the exact decisions that could get you out of it. You're trying to think your way out of a hole, while the hole is draining the part of your brain you'd think with. That's not a character flaw. That's what living without margin does to a person. You make more money by breaking the one rule the whole trap depends on. You stop letting your lifestyle grow with your income. The move is simple to say and hard to do. Freeze your lifestyle where it is right now and treat every future raise as money you already don't get to spend. The day a raise hits, it does not touch your day-to-day life at all. Your apartment stays the same, your car stays the same, your weekends stay the same. The only thing that changes is how fast your money goes to work. And it goes to work in a specific order. First, kill any high-interest debt. Paying off a card charging 22% is a guaranteed 22% return on your money instantly, tax-free. There is no investment on earth that can promise you a guaranteed 22%. Nothing beats it. So that's where the first raised dollars go. Then build a cushion, 1 month of expenses, sitting in a separate account you don't touch. This is the single highest leverage thing you can own, because that cushion is a weapon against every broke tax we talked about. With 1 month in reserve, the overdraft fee stops because your balance never hits zero. The catastrophe tax stops because you can fix the small thing before it becomes the big thing. A flat tire becomes an annoyance instead of a payday loan. You can even raise the deductible on your insurance, which lowers your monthly premium, meaning having money in the bank literally lowers your bills. Money makes everything cheaper. The cushion is how you buy that. Then invest the rest, automatically every month before you ever see it, into something boring and broad that compounds. Set it up once so it happens without willpower. This works because you're not just saving, you're shutting off the leaks that were quietly draining you. The best return on a raise isn't some hot stock tip, it's escaping the broke taxes. So spend deliberately on the things that stop the bleeding. Buy the boots that last, the tires that last, the appliance that won't die in 2 years. Fix the tooth before it's a root canal. And when you do spend, think in total cost over years, not the monthly payment. Because the monthly payment framing is exactly the trick they use to hide what something really costs you. There's a mindset shift that has to come with this, and it's the hardest part. The moment you finally have a little cash, the temptation is to treat yourself. A nice dinner, something new, just to feel normal, to feel like all that work paid off. That instinct is the trap closing again. That money's job isn't to make you feel rich for a weekend. Its job is to permanently solve a problem, or to buy you a piece of freedom you get to keep. Every late fee, every overdraft, every cheap thing you had to replace should make you angry enough to build the buffer that ends them for good. So go audit your own life for these leaks. The high-interest car loan, the insurance you're overpaying for because you have no savings, the single rolls and small packs, the subscriptions feeding a lifestyle you inflated into without deciding to. Find the biggest leak, cut everything around it, and plug it first. Do all of this and two things happen. In the short term, you get your margin back. Room to breathe, room to be wrong, room to say no. In the long term, the money you're banking starts to compound, and somewhere down the line, it begins to throw off income of its own. That's the moment you stop treading water and start actually building wealth. And you get options, real ones. One day, you can take the risk, switch careers, start the thing, step back to handle a family emergency, say no to the boss because your life no longer hangs on the next check. Understand all this, and you quietly stop being a great customer for the banks and the lenders and the brands, and you start being a great manager of your own money. They budget for your overdrafts, your late fees, your high-interest loans, your cheap stuff you replace every year. They count on it. The day you understand the game, you stop funding theirs. None of this is easy, and I won't pretend it is. It is genuinely harder to save your first $10,000 than it is to grow your next $90,000. The start is uphill, with the wind in your face because you're fighting all these penalties at once with the least money to fight them with. But once you can see that staying broke runs on a set of rules, you can stop blaming yourself for being stuck and start beating the rules one at a time. Meet Daniel. Daniel is 35. He started his career making $48,000, but today he makes $96,000. He doubled his income in a decade, and he did it the completely normal way, the way you're supposed to. Where did it all go? Every raise along the way got taxed at his top rate, so the take-home was always smaller than the headline number he got excited about. And every time the take-home landed, his life grew to meet it. A studio became a one-bedroom, then a condo with a mortgage the bank sized to his full salary. A paid-off beater became a $470 a month car payment, then a nicer one. Dinners out 3 nights a week, a handful of subscriptions. Nicer clothes because his coworkers dressed that way. Nothing crazy, just more. Every single time there was more. And because he never built a cushion, he kept paying the broke taxes the whole way up. He still overdrafts a couple times a year. He still finances things at high interest. He still buys the cheap version and replaces it. At $96,000, he's paying the exact same penalties he paid at $48,000. The result, Daniel has about $3,000 in savings, roughly what he had at 25, a pile of payments, and a life so completely wired to the full $96,000 that he couldn't drop to a cheaper one if he tried. He looks successful. New car, nice place, good clothes, and he's one missed paycheck from disaster. Twice the income, none of the freedom. Now run it the other way. Same Daniel, same job, same raises. But this time, he makes one decision differently. He keeps living like his $48,000 self even as the money grows. He freezes his lifestyle. Every after-tax raised dollar goes in order to wiping out his debt, then to a 1-month cushion, then into automatic investing. His apartment stays modest. His car stays paid off and boring. To his coworkers, he looks like he's doing fine. Nothing special. But underneath, the difference is staggering. By the time he's 35, instead of $3,000 in a trap, he's got no high interest debt, a full cushion, and an investment account well into the 6 figures and growing on its own. Same paychecks to the dollar. One man is trapped, the other one is free. The only thing that changed between those two Daniels was what they did with the extra. Not how much they earned, what they kept. That's the entire game. Here's what to do this week. Don't even wait for the next raise. Pull up your spending and find the lifestyle inflation that already happened. The costs that quietly crept in with the last raise or two you got. Pick the single biggest one you can roll back and redirect that money to high interest debt or a cushion instead. Start there. One leak, plug this week. And the next time you get a raise, decide where it goes before it arrives. While it's still easy to give up money you've never spent, money you've never held is easy to part with. Money that's already in your lifestyle is almost impossible to claw back. Remember the person we started with. Twice the salary, same broke. That was never a story about not earning enough. They earned plenty. It was a story about a trap that takes the extra before it can ever reach you. Taxes, lifestyle creep, the broke taxes, the bidding war, the appearance of wealth, the lost margin, every one of them with its hand out. Earning more doesn't make you richer. Keeping more does. Rich was never the big number coming in. It's the margin you hold and the freedom that margin buys. You can't earn your way out of a trap you don't understand. Now you understand it, so stop trying to out-earn it and start keeping it instead.